Hi, my name is Michael Waits. Thank you for joining us for this very special edition of Insurance for the New Possible. We are broadcasting live from the Chubb Insurance booth at the Singapore Fintech Festival, the largest fintech festival in the world and a knowledge platform for the global fintech community. We could not be more excited to be here. Now let's welcome Ethan Zhang, the Chief Strategy Officer at Koinworks, with whom we will discuss towards comprehensive finance, facilitating new financial interactions in Indonesia. Ethan, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Can you feel the energy here?
I really can. I was here last year, and I think there's even more energy this year.
I agree. And actually, we were talking about this on one of the earlier episodes. I feel like yesterday people were kind of staging themselves, just kind of getting ready. Normally day two, I feel like energy levels go down. But today I feel like it's more active. Is that just me?
I wasn't here yesterday, so I can't speak for sure. But yeah, I mean, I just got here today, and the energy here is way more than I had last year. So
I love it.
I'm very happy to be here.
Let's talk a little bit about Koinworks. In what ways has Koinworks tailored its customer support and service to cater to the unique needs of Indonesian SMEs?
Yeah, I think a couple of the main ways that we have tailored it is mainly tailored to kind of how the market is. So the market is a mix of digital and also offline.
Okay.
So we do have telemarketing agents. We do have agents on the phone, agents online. But at the same time, we also have agents on the ground.
Oh,
so
really?
It has to be a mix of both. It's an approach that we generally take to cater to our customers and where they are.
Can you talk about it from their perspective? When they think about like what do they need? How do they want service and support? What are some of those unique things about Indonesia? Because can I say this too? 18,000 islands.
Yes.
Right. So some big cities, but some remote areas. And when I say remote, I just mean remote because they're islands and it's hard to get to and hard to reach them, but they're not like disconnected, right? How does that work?
Yeah, so I think that's a unique thing about us as a fintech player, because for us, we do prioritize on the technology side. So we definitely go where the customers are,
right,
to a certain extent. And a lot of the customers actually, the main thing that they care about is really the convenience.
Okay.
The ability to reach us wherever they are, whenever they need to. And for that, generally, we have digital channels, we have WhatsApp, but we also have our own app, in-app support. So these are the things that generally we make it as easy as possible for them to reach us whenever they need to reach us.
What is the feedback loop like for you, particularly as the CSO, right? Like I said, there are islands, there are mountains. It's very different geography throughout Indonesia. What's the feedback loop like for you when you go to deal with particular clients and they say, actually, we need to have it like this, or we need to have it like that? How does that work?
So I think one of the important things to note about Indonesia is that about 70-80% of the economic activity generally happens on the Java island.
Oh, okay.
So yes, there are over 1,800 islands and so on, but
right,
most of the activity generally happens still in Java.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. Because a lot of people, I talk to startups all over Indonesia. I talk to venture capitalists as well, and they all mention like just the sheer size, right? But if most of it's happening on Java, I guess it makes that a little bit easier, right?
Yeah.
As a developing economy, right? Can you talk about in what ways Koinworks is tackling this idea of financial inclusion, but also maybe address why it's so important?
Yeah. So the way that we're kind of approaching this is mostly from two angles. First one is on the financial angle. Second one is more on the non-financial angle.
Okay, what is that?
So financial angle, generally speaking, we talk about it from a access to credit perspective, as well as access to financial services. So the segment that we're targeting is the MSME segment, so the micro, small, and medium enterprises segment. And 70% of those are actually underbanked, underserved MSMEs. So generally speaking, we try to increase access to credit for this segment of users, this segment of MSMEs who aren't able to actually be served by the traditional banks.
Right.
And that's something that I think it's even has been kind of in the media reported that there's about $60 to $80 billion of funding gap in Indonesia.
That's a really big number.
It is. So access to credit is definitely a huge thing, and Indonesian government and also the regulators are increasing focus on this part as well. Besides that, on the banking side as well, on the digital banking side, that's also something that we do want to encourage more. And we do have a product that actually like helps them to do that. So we do provide it to our MSMEs to help them with day-to-day business needs in terms of receiving payments, making payments, saving their money as well.
Okay.
So those are some of the financial side. On the non-financial side, for the financial inclusion, we also do a lot on the education.
So tell me how that works, right? Because this is really important. Because the next thing I was going to ask you was, it's great to build a service, right, that works for an MSME. But when you go to them and say, you need this, at some level, you have to tell them why they need it. Because they've been operating without it for maybe generations, right?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So the education piece, you're right. It's a very crucial piece. Because typically, a lot of the entrepreneurs, they tend to use the same personal accounts for both personal and business needs.
Yeah, because they just get money, they put it over here, and if they need to buy food for themselves, they just take it out of here and go buy it, right?
Exactly. And a lot of them, they operate a business because they are supporting the family.
Yep.
So it doesn't really matter to them.
Yeah, it's the same money.
Yeah.
Right.
But the difference comes when you're trying to scale a business.
Right.
If you're trying to scale a business, you need to get access to credit. You need to go to a bank. And for you to start building up that business history, it's much easier for you down the road when you go to a bank or you go to some other services to say that, guys, I already have a history with Koinworks. Take a look at my transaction history.
Right.
This is how long I've been operating my business. This is how much I've been making in terms of my revenue, my turnovers. And eventually, it makes it a lot easier for them if they separate their personal and their business accounts.
So can I ask you this, though? Can you just walk me through this process? Like, tell me a story about a micro SME or even a slightly larger SME where Koinworks went to them. Maybe at first they were like, we don't need this because we've always been operating this way. But now that we see this, like, what's the trigger point for them to say, oh, wait a second. Not only can I be financially included, but I can be more financially independent if every month I just take a little bit of money and put it aside, and then I can do something else with that. So it's not just about building the business, it's about building the independence as well. How does that work?
Yeah, I'll probably give 2 examples actually.
Please.
One of them is a coffee chain.
Okay, I like it already.
Very interesting. It's a coffee chain in Indonesia, in Jakarta. It's called Ombe Coffee.
Okay.
So Koinworks has been supporting them since the early days when they were only one single outlet.
I love it.
And because of the credit that they were able to get from Koinworks, they've now expanded to probably more than 5 by now.
Okay.
They're all over the place in Jakarta. I think if you ask anyone,
they've heard of it.
They've heard of it.
So when you went to them, did they already have the idea and the dream to expand, or did they notice once they started using you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because maybe they were happy with that one shop, but when you went to them and said, if you do this and this and this and use the app and save a little bit, you can actually open up a shop across town.
Yeah.
Is that the way that worked?
Yeah.
Or is it a mix of both?
I think it's a bit of a mix of both.
Okay.
I think they already knew that, they wanted to expand.
Okay.
And they needed capital to expand.
Yep.
So it's obviously we were there to support them and help them grow along the way.
Is there a certain amount of joy that you get?
Yeah.
I want to get to this idea of mixing the profitability with the purpose. But before I do that, I want to ask you personally, like, is there a certain amount of joy you get when the work that you do like really impacts somebody who's building and running a business? Because remember, you said before, that money is for their family because they're supporting their family. But going from 1 coffee shop to 5 coffee shops, now it's way more significant, yeah?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
It's an intangible feel-good feeling that you cannot quantify.
Right, not at all though, right?
You cannot quantify it at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's I think it's something that all of us at Koinworks feels pretty deeply about, which is the impact that we're making for the people, for the businesses, and most importantly, I think for their families as well.
Yeah, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I feel like there's a new kind of capitalism, and that is profitability with a purpose.
Yes.
I know I didn't make that phrase up, but I really believe that that's a thing, right?
Yeah.
And I know this because when I was working at a big bank or a big investment bank, you make a ton of money, but it never felt like there was any reason for it.
Yeah.
And there was no joy in going like, I just killed that trade, which is why I asked the question, how do you balance those two things just as a firm where you say, we could probably push this thing, but that doesn't align with our purpose. And even if we can make a little bit more money, it's better to align. How does that work?
So I think that the interesting thing here is that their profitability and impact, they're not mutually exclusive.
No, they're not at all,
Yeah,
actually.
exactly.
That's the point I was trying to make. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, and that's a great point, because I think for us, we are very lucky to have a group of shareholders, a group of investors
Right.
who are extremely supportive
Yeah.
and extremely aligned with our mission and our vision
Right.
to be the most impactful fintech in the region.
Yeah.
So for us, obviously, profitability, given the current investor climate and the macro environment, it's of utmost importance. But at the same time, the impact that we're making is something that we never want to lose sight of.
Yeah. It's weird, though, that you mentioned the investors as well. I hadn't really thought about it in that context, but the general venture capital community should be happy,
Yes.
particularly in this region, when a team is building particularly in the fintech space, but really in any space, a firm that has a purpose.
Yes.
Right? Because at the end of the day, if you succeed in the purpose, you should succeed in the profitability as well. And in a country where there's only upside for GDP per capita growth, that should make the investors really happy. Do you sense that from your investors as well?
Definitely. And I think we do see also a lot more in terms of the rise of the impact funds, not only on the equity side, but also on the debt side.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are definitely a lot of DFIs, developmental FIs, who are
Right.
coming into the region.
Good.
So you see the likes of, like, say, IFC, you
Yep.
see the likes
Yeah.
of some of the other folks who are coming in.
Yep.
Definitely a lot of them are putting their attention on this region because
Okay.
there's so much development, there's so much digitization, financial inclusion that's yet to be done.
Right.
And they do see that there is a lot more room for growth here in terms of impact as well.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned the IFC, actually, because I spent a lot of time on the phone with them,
Yeah.
talking to them about specific companies and specific places where that investment for purpose can be really, really useful.
Yep.
I'm glad you brought them up. What are some of the biggest challenges that you have as well? Again, it's a developing and growing economy. There's a lot of focus on Indonesia as well. Yeah, from the
Yeah.
outside world, if for no other reason than the population is just so huge. So the opportunity looks so big. But what are some of the challenges about building something?
Yeah, I think some of the main challenges is, well, you think about the demographics, you think about the geography of Indonesia.
Right.
So it's a bit of a double-edged sword.
Tell me.
There's a lot of people. There's about 260, 270 million people,
Yeah.
which accounts for half of Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
But the landmass, as we mentioned earlier, it's huge.
It is huge.
So landmass is huge. Economic activity is concentrated, which means obviously there's certain areas that we should be targeting.
Right.
But there's also the challenge that there's increasingly, I guess, a lot of concerns around fraud.
Fraud.
Yeah.
Talk to me.
So
What kind of fraud?
Yeah, I think you probably saw in some of the news in terms of some of the data breaches of the banks, some of the identity frauds, and so on and so forth. So I think that's some of the challenges that most of the tech companies are facing as well, in terms of the infrastructure that's still being developed in the market in the
Right.
region.
So how much time do you as a team spend thinking about this? Right? Because you can, like you said, you can build the best products in the world.
Yeah.
You can be even working for a purpose.
Yeah.
But if there's fraud involved, not on your platform, but you know what I mean, like in the market,
Yeah.
it's a negative signal for people then to participate in this digital transformation, right?
Yeah.
Because there's no fraud in me taking money out of a drawer and giving it to somebody.
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is a very significant thing that we always keep in mind.
Yep.
And it kind of ties back to what we were talking about, profitability.
Right.
Because imagine, like, for every dollar coming in, if you're losing $2 out of the
Yeah.
door through
Yeah.
fraud, there's no way you're going to be profitable.
No.
So it's definitely something that's very much top of mind for us.
Got it. Can you talk about how insurance, because we're talking about protection at some level, right?
Yeah.
So how does insurance and protection integrate into Koinworks strategy?
Yeah, so here's an interesting one. Because for us, we have also transitioned a little bit of our positioning from being a lender, a P2P lender in
Right.
the early days,
Yep.
towards more of a SME neobank recently. So with that, I think we look at some of the global trends, some of the global digital banks. Generally speaking, you look at their roadmap as they mature, as they scale, they all of them would actually add on different types of services.
Yep.
whether it's in the form of cards, in the form of overdraft, or in the form of insurance.
Right.
So I think for us, it's a similar train of thought, which is, as we continue to scale, as we continue to mature, we also want to provide more and more relevant services for our customers. And insurance is also something that, we've identified that it's a natural progression for us in our growth story.
Let's talk a little bit more about the insurance products. Where does embedded fit in here? How do you embed that into the everyday activities of the people that you're serving?
Yeah. So in Indonesia, the adoption of mobile phones is actually very high.
Yeah.
And for us, we have actually taken an app approach,
Okay.
app first approach towards our user interface.
Okay.
So it makes a lot of sense for us to have something that's embedded into the app.
Yep.
Because that is basically where our customers are. That's basically where our customers interface. That's where they actually do their transactions, do their business, make payments, receive payments. So it's very embedded. It's a very straightforward nature for us to embed everything into the app, actually.
Right. Do you get feedback from your clients that then makes it easier for you to understand the sort of relevance of the product to them and then build those services back in an embedded way?
Definitely. So I think we do a lot of research with the customers, do a lot of surveys. We also bring them in for focus group discussions.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot of things that we are in constant touch with our customers to figure out, okay, what's working, what's not working, what else do you want? What else can we do better for you?
Right. When you look into the future, without giving away sort of any fancy roadmap that I'm sure you have, how do you look at building like more holistic financial services, right? Because you said you started off as this P2P lender, and now you've pivoted, my words, not yours, right, into being a new bank. But on top of that, once you have them doing financial services with you, you can build a lot more stuff. How do you see that progressing over time as well?
Yeah, I think we're still in the early days of becoming in the neobank phase, where a lot of things are kind of still getting launched. We launched our neobank sometime around middle of last year. Okay. So things are still fairly new, and we also acquired a rural bank beginning of this year. Yeah, so there's a lot of things that are kind of coming together, different pieces. But if we think about the holistic, being a holistic service provider to SMEs, generally speaking, we want to be with them from day one, all the way to helping them continue to grow, continue to scale, from the unsecured loans, going even to the secured loans as well, and also to other type of services such as insurance, and so on. There must be something really fulfilling about changing people's lives. Definitely. I think the most fulfilling part is seeing them starting from day one, to be able to grow all the way, support their families, and also support the community. Awesome. That's a great way to end. Ethan, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate your time. Thank you. I've enjoyed it so much. I hope so. Don't forget to follow Insurance for the New Possible on your favorite podcast platform and on YouTube to stay up to date on all of our amazing and informative content.